I said I was gonna do this, so let's do it. Now, right now, I went and I looked. Just back right here at the bill text received today, because that's what I was looking at yesterday. And well, it turns out there's a whole new list of bills received today. And I mean, this is as long or longer than the list yesterday. So these guys are just throwing bills in there left and right. Just, how many fucking bills do we need? Clearly, there's all sorts of problems that we're just not aware of. Let me go back to where I was because it's all right. I'm just going to use the search function up here because I took notes yesterday. Um, I know I said I was going to do something like at noon, but I don't know. I went to sleep at like 2, 3 a.m. and I slept for a long time. Got some good sleep. You gotta sleep in order to keep your immune system strong, and it's good for the heart, and it's just healthy for you. But this is the first one, the Aviation Manufacturing Jobs Protection Act of 2021. Okay, as you can see, sponsored by a Democrat and co-sponsors. Okay, let's just we take a look at this. These are things that have just been introduced, right? These things haven't been passed or anything, but there's not a high likelihood, but well, I mean, if a Democrat's putting it forward, there's a high likelihood of it getting passed, I say. All right. So, this act may be cited as the Aviation Manufacturing Jobs Protection Act of 2021. All right. And as you can see, they start off with their definitions, right? Which, we don't necessarily care too much. But as you can see, at-risk employee group, the term at-risk employee group means that 25% of an employer's United States workforce comprised of employees who are at most risk of permanent reduction in force or furlough. Right? So in other words, we're going to have to fire people. And it's like, well, we wouldn't want you to fire anybody, now would we? Don't want people necessarily losing their jobs. And they're blaming it on due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Right? But I mean, some of these airlines, it seems they're not allowing people to fly if they don't have masks and stuff. So you would think, yeah. Anyway, it does not include senior executive employees or any employee with compensation level 200,000 or more. I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter because what the idea here is, excuse me, no tax determination, right? Appropriations, authorization of appropriations. This is the thing that kind of affects people. There's authorized to be appropriated $15 billion to carry out this act. All right. Now, what is that 15 billion supposed to do? Well, if I remember correctly, it's not they're not allowed to use it for stock buybacks. That should be in here somewhere. They're also, yeah, all right. So the assistance provided in this section may not be used for stock buybacks or to pay out dividends. And it's like, okay, all right. Assistance providers shall be used solely for the purpose of providing compensation, benefits, and training of the at-risk employee group. Right? Now, effectively, they want to give $15 billion to the aviation industry to say, like, okay, you can't fire anybody, or at least, you can't fire anybody because of rather, it's not even that you can't, right? It's in order to, right, restore the rights and protections for returning employees if such employees had not been involuntarily furloughed. So if they had been involuntarily furloughed, then this isn't going to restore their rights and protections, which, I would say most of those employees are going to be, involuntarily furloughed. The way they word this, just it's supposed to make it seem like, oh, okay, like people, had not been, voluntarily furloughed. it's just like anybody who's going to voluntarily go on a furlough is going to be the only people that this is going to affect. Whereas the people who had been, right, if we just take that not out of there, right, is to restore the rights and protections for returning employees as if such employees had not been involuntarily furloughed. Well, the main idea of this, I think I'm just reading it wrong. Well, I did just wake up, so, fuck me. But the idea here is effectively $15 billion to go towards the aviation industry to encourage them to train and retain employees. I mean, in general, the Secretary of Transportation, in coordination with other appropriate federal departments or agencies, shall establish a payroll support extension program to enter into agreements with aviation employers to provide a 50% share for the compensation, benefits, and training of at-risk employee groups financially impacted by the COVID-19 public health emergency. Well, I don't know about you guys, but the aviation industry wasn't doing all that solid before. All right, so this seems to me like there's an excuse to bail them out, if anything, to gain more federal control over the aviation industry. And as you can see, they want to allot $15 billion to carry this act out. You may not think that's a lot. When it comes to the government, maybe that's not a lot, right? They typically deal in trillions, but those billions, they add up, And so that's that one. Let's just be aware that that's kind of what they want to do. So if you're in the aviation industry, heck, if this bill gets passed, then you're getting fired, and they take that money, then you can probably bring a case, because there's another bill on here. There was. I'm tired. The next one is 596. Let's refamiliarize ourselves with this one. But this one has something to do with for certain nursing homes and telehealth. Right? Access Act. Access Act. Okay. Let's look at the text of the Access Act. All right. No. To increase the ability of nursing facilities to access telehealth services and obtain technologies to allow virtual visits during the public health emergency relating to an outbreak of coronavirus disease 2019 and for other purposes. Okay. So this, we're going to go on to the appropriations here. Appropriations. Where's the 50 million? I'm looking for 50 million from any funds in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated. That seems like something that happened recently. Let's take a look at these actions here. Let's just introduce in-house. All actions except amendments. 0 amendments. Well, what the hell? What do you mean 0 amendments? It must have been amended if I'm not able to find the 50. Oh, here it is. Right here. It's right at the top. Okay. All right. For an additional amount for the Telehealth Resource Center of the Federal Office of Rural Health Policy of the Office of the Advancement of Telehealth to provide assistance with respect to technical, legal, regulatory, service delivery, or other related barriers to the development of telehealth technologies for skilled nursing facilities. And nursing facilities, $50 million to remain available through September 30th, 2022. Now, let me just I have to go over here. What's this? I'm gonna type in. I gotta find this because I really didn't find this earlier. So I apologize for the politician telehealth buys stocks. All right, let's go to the news here. Oh, what's her name? I don't even know her name. What is this? Oh, God damn it. Georgia. She's a senator? Senator Loeffler. There we go. Loeffler, this crazy bitch. Let's go with sells stocks. Stock shares. Okay. Senators sold off stock before market losses from virus. All right. So let me just bring this over here. You guys can see that. All right. Georgia Senator's stock sales could cause trouble for Republicans in special election. Okay. Now, these people then bought telehealth services. AOL, Bloomberg, Huffington Post. Let's go with the Charlotte Observer because, I mean, political. Like, I'm not going to fucking look at these guys. Oh, wow. Jim Carrey needles Senator Kelly Loeffler over COVID blood money in new cartoon. Oh, yeah. Elizabeth Warren brings back push to ban lawmakers from stock trading as Georgia's two senators. Yeah. As you see, there's been quite a bit of bullshit going on in Georgia. And yes, this woman is very much a part of that bullshit. If you remember, she's the same one who stood before Congress or Senate, and she was like, "I came prepared to contest the election, but after what happened on January 6th, I just couldn't do that in good conscience." Like, I mean, nah. Like, these things are planned well in advance. Like, she's not going to just change her deal over, you know. She just used that as an excuse, in my opinion. Wait, hold on. Just wife of drug kingpin El Chapo arrested on U.S. drug charges. Okay. Anyway, was initially the favorite to win a special election in Georgia. Yeah, but honestly, she seems like just swamp material. Blah, 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 blah. There's something about her buying telehealth services. Well, hold on. Blah, 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 blah. Shit. I should have gotten prepared a little better. Whether Collins can gain new momentum to sustain it through the November election will depend on Loeffler's ability to explain the stock sale and Collins' ability to make his attacks resonate. Well, okay, so effectively, this is the woman who sold her stocks, you know, but she did lose like $1 million, right? But I feel like, you know, she knows exactly what she was doing. And what she did is she put that money into telehealth. And I want to find where she explains how it wasn't her, it was the people trading her stocks. And it's just like, well, it wasn't my doing. It was just, you know, the people who manage my stocks are very good. They're very good, is what I believe she said. But I believe that money that was invested in other things, in other medical services, has now been invested in telehealth. That's just what I believe. I think that's what a lot of people did. And so this idea of giving like $50 million to basically giving $50 million to nursing homes and nursing facilities to buy telehealth technology is a way to get that money back into the companies that they're invested in, and therefore raise the value of their investments. Right. And that's not the only telehealth bill that was introduced yesterday. Bless me. HR 593. All right. Now, she's not gonna. If she herself were to put forward a bill about like giving $50 million to nursing homes to buy telehealth equipment and stuff, then it'd be just so fucking obvious, right? But I mean, everybody over there seems to hang out, you know, seems to be able to just walk across the hall and talk to whoever they need to talk to, and there's nothing going to be on record about it because they're chatting. right? You're not going to get an email or text message or anything like that. They'll be like, hey, you want to go out for lunch? You're like, yeah, of course. Who's buying? It's like, oh, I'll buy it. But I need you to put forward this bill, please. And yeah, get your money into this stuff now. So HR 593, blah, blah, blah. A summary is in progress. Yeah. We don't need your summary. We got the text. To establish the coronavirus mental health and addiction assistance network and for other purposes. Right? It's like, oh, okay, that sounds innocent enough. To establish the coronavirus mental health and addiction assistance, which is just like, okay, people who have become addicted or deal with substance abuse because of the coronavirus pandemic. Which, I mean, you could say they're blaming the pandemic when really they ought to be blaming the lockdowns, because it's not the pandemic, it's the response to the pandemic. But go ahead and blame the response to the pandemic on the pandemic, and hey, we're can do no wrong here. Blah, blah, blah. Let's take a look. Where is it? This one is $100 million. $100 million to initiate, expand, or sustain programs that provide professional mental health and substance use disorder counseling and referral for other forms of assistance necessary mental health in the substance pandemic. Blah blah blah. Telephone helplines and websites. Okay, training. Okay, support groups, outreach. Okay, telehealth services. I should love how it's just like short to like telehealth services. And it's just right at the end of this thing. Like, oh, it's just, telehealth services. Oh, please. Right. That I believe says a lot more, because it's just like telephone helplines and websites. I don't feel like most of this money is going to go into that. I feel like most of the money is going to go into these telehealth services. But we'll see. We'll see. That's my appropriations. There's authorized to be appropriated to carry out this section $100 million for the fiscal year ending in September 30th, 2021. So we're up to like $150 million from the government to go to telehealth services, right? Because you think these support groups are going to be in person? You think this training is going to be in person? Maybe. And this outreach is going to be in person? No, for the most part, they're going to be getting telehealth services. That's my opinion. That's what I believe. Could be wrong. Totally could be wrong. But telehealth services. All right. So with this bill and the last bill, it's $150 million that's going to be potentially going to, well, that was $50 million that was definitely going to telehealth services, because that bill was nothing about anything else. It was all about telehealth services. This one, tries to be a little more sly about it, where it's like, oh yeah, telephone helplines and websites, which, who uses telephone helplines? I mean, I've never done that. I don't know anybody who has. Training. Okay, so you got to train people for counseling, substance abuse, and mental health. I feel like that's not going to be all that effective. Anyway, after you've trained these people, how are they going to, interact with the clients? Right? How are these support groups going to interact? Right? Because, not everything's going to be in person. Right? You can't even find the people in the same area. There's probably not enough people in the local area to be like, oh, meet up at this room in this office. Right? And outreach, right? So they're going to be reaching out to people, equipment, to clients for remote access. See, remote access to mental health and substance use disorder services. That's another thing. That's another way of saying telehealth services. Right? Remote access, telehealth, remote access, telehealth. Right? $100 million for this. Okay. So effectively, I mean, one of the things you guys can do out there, if you've got money available, right, is you can look up some telehealth companies, find out which ones are public, and put your money in them, because Congress seems to be throwing some money their way. Whether or not they're going to be useful or used, they're still going to get money, and the value of the stock is probably going to still go up. Oh, what's the next one? Oh, right, another $50 million for telehealth. Let's go up here and type it in. It's HR 588. HR 588. Stopping the mental health pandemic. Act. Mental Health Pandemic Act. I mean, once you stop the lockdowns, I feel like that doesn't cost a damn thing. But, that's me. Because, if the mental health is, because people can't work, because you got to admit, working really helps, right? If you're sitting at home and you're doing nothing all day, right, that sucks, right? Like some people might be like, oh, I would love to do that. Like, maybe for like a day or two, but after a while, you're going to be like, dude, this sucks. I need to do something. I need to get out. I need to work. I need to actually make something. I need to make products. I need to create wealth and generate something so I feel actually like useful and needed and a part of the system and stuff like that. So, all right, to direct the Secretary of Human and Health Services to award grants to states, political subdivisions of states, Indian tribes and tribal organizations, community-based entities, and primary care and behavioral health organizations to address behavioral health needs caused by the public health emergency declared with respect to COVID-19. All right, so just COVID-19. Oh, we gotta do this, gotta do that. Oh, basically the same thing. Mental health pandemic. Let's go ahead and find, what was it, 50 million? Yeah. Appropriations. Carry the section here is authorized to be appropriated 50 million for each of the fiscal years 2021 and 2022 to remain available until expended. 50 million for each? Okay, so that actually adds up to 100 million. Right, because if it's 50 million for each year, then it's 50 million for 2021 and 50 million for 2022. I mean, I could be wrong about that. It might just be 50 million for 2021 and 2022. But for each of these, then it means 50 million for 2021 and for 2022, another 50 million for 2022. All right, so that seems to be 100 million right there. My bad, I didn't really pick up on that the first time around. Right? Now let's take a look at what the increased behavioral treatment and prevention capacity, including promote coordination among local entities. Okay, that's nice. And train people. Okay. Upgrade technologies to support effective delivery of healthcare services through telehealth modality. Modality? What the fuck is that? Modalities? What the hell is modality? Hold on. I have to actually look this fucking word up. Modalities. Definition. Modal quality. A particular mode in which something exists or is experienced or expressed. Okay. So, so much for Yahoo definitions. Telehealth. Purchase medical supplies and equipment for behavioral health treatment. Address surge capacity for behavioral health needs, such as through mobile units. Promote collaboration between primary health care and mental health providers. But, I mean, they're really just trying to sneak this telehealth stuff in there. That's my opinion. Right? Like, all this other stuff seems nice and well and all. But when I see telehealth services and I'm like, money for telehealth, because you would think, how much is this going to be used? Like, I think out of all of these, the one that's going to be used the most is the upgrade technology to support effective delivery of healthcare services through telehealth. Whatever the fuck that word is. I don't even want to say it. Right? Modalities. Like, goddamn. So, support and enhance the services. Right? Like, evidence-based suicide prevention, will end the lockdown, right? Be like, okay, like, there's not much we can do, so go out there and just do what you can, everybody. Like, get your immunity up. It's the only way that we're actually going to come out of this on the other end faster. Like, it may suck, but, like, it's one of those things. It's like when you're sick, right? You be like, okay, I need to actually just get through this illness faster so I can get back to doing what I need to do, right? And I think in this case, if they're talking about like these mental health things, and it's worse, right? I mean, it's worse in this case because not everybody who's suffering from like the mental health or the suicidal thoughts and that kind of stuff, not everybody's suffering from COVID-19, right? They're more suffering from the fact that they're not allowed out of their homes by the government, which, these people really ought to just, I mean, I'm in Texas, I'm lucky. right? There's no fucking way they're keeping everybody inside in Texas. Like, nah. Even when it's freezing cold outside, it's like, nah, nah. You guys, keep yourselves screening, assessment, and diagnosis and treatment, mental health awareness trainings, community recovery, outreach, frontline healthcare workers. But the main thing here, I think, is there's the telehealth. Like, I feel like they're just trying to sneak a bunch of stuff in and clog it up with all this other stuff, which all this other stuff sounds, good and all, right? But once again, we just know that they've invested their money in telehealth services, right? And just how is this stuff going to be used? Like, all this is going to go through telehealth services, right? Like, when it comes to the screening and assessment, diagnosis and treatment, that's going to go through telehealth services for the most part, right? They're like, oh, well, we're going to have mobile crisis units, 24/7 crisis call centers, medically staffed crisis stabilization programs. But I feel like this stuff is going to be including telehealth. Like, you see mobile units. What the hell is that? You're going to send people out to people's location. You're going to send a government employee to somebody, and that's supposed to help them, not feel suicidal. I mean, how long are they going to hang out? Like, what are they going to do? Like, I'm sorry, but there's nothing. The government can't replace your friends. They can't replace your family. There's nothing like hanging out with friends or hanging out with family. And a lot of people make friends through work, right? They go to work and they meet people, and after work sometimes they like hang out. Like, when I was a lifeguard, right? I met like a bunch of older people, and they were like, "Yo, you want to come over, have some beers and stuff?" And it's like, "Fuck yeah, I do," right? And so that's so much better, right? And it doesn't really cost the government anything. Particularly, it doesn't cost them $50 million for each fiscal year. Oh my gosh! And it's just like, you're going to be spending this money on handling the side effect of your lockdowns, but all you really needed to do was end the lockdown and then be like, you guys are good, and it wouldn't cost you a damn thing, and people would be able to make money and let people live, right? It's just like, if it's all about the risk, right? Every day you run that risk. If you get in your car and you get on the road, that, like, I gotta watch out for some asshole who's not paying attention. I gotta watch out for somebody who's staring at their phone, right, and not paying attention, right? You go out there and you take the risk because you want to be outside. You want to get to your job. You want to go see your friends. You want to go see your family. You want to go eat at a restaurant. You want to go see a movie. You want to go bowling. You want to go to Topgolf, right? And there's just always these risks. And for them to be like, okay, well, you can't do any of that stuff because there's a virus running around. And it's like, that's it? That's all? I mean, how many people, are killed by this? What's the percentage? Right? If it was like 10% of all people who like got it died, they'd be like, oh shit. Right? But if it's like 1-2%, it's like, I feel like that should be left to me, the individual, to take the risk. Right? And I get the argument. I don't really get the argument, but the argument is, oh, you don't want to like kill grandma and stuff. Well, if grandma doesn't want to take the risk, then grandma can stay inside. Like, I don't know what the fuck you talking about. Like, I'm not forcing grandma to go to the movie theater. I'm not forcing grandma to come play Topgolf or have beers, right? Like, nobody's forcing anybody to leave their own self-quarantine, their own like self-imposed lockdown. Nobody's doing that. It's just like, but you want to force people to be locked down. I mean, you can leave it up to the individual. And I mean, I'm lucky I'm in Texas where everything is left up to the individuals, right? It would suck to live in I guess, what is it, Seattle? There was a guy I played league with, and he was talking about how he, had therapy sessions, which I guess he had a therapist before the lockdown, but because of the lockdown, like things were so much worse. And I mean, I watched one of his streams as he was playing like ranked league, and yeah, dude's out of his fucking mind. Dude is out of his mind. He was like escaping, right? Because he played mid and he'd come down to bot lane to gank, and he was like leaving, but the other side had this Jhin on the other team that had his ult open and was firing, and there was a Blitzcrank that was tanking the shots, right? Because if one shot had hit him, he would have died, right? And Blitzcrank just continues in a straight line, and instead of staying like instead of keeping Blitzcrank between him and the Jhin, he like moves slightly off to the left. The Jhin fires an ult, hits him, kills him, first death of the game, and he cusses the guy out, cusses Blitzcrank out for not like, leashing himself to him, right? Instead of him trying to keep himself alive by keeping the Blitzcrank between them, he expects the Blitzcrank to keep himself in the middle, right? I mean, it's a give or take thing, and Blitzcrank's already tanked 2 shots. Like he's not like trying to do it, but he's not trying to not tank shots, and so he just moves off to the left and gets killed. And at the end of the game, he reports him, and then like clicks everything, right? Just reports it. And I'm just like, this guy's a fucking lunatic, right? And that's Seattle. That's what you get up there with your lockdowns, and probably a little bit of that before the lockdowns, to be perfectly honest. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico for college, and those people are insane. That shit is crazy, right? It's literally like I mean, I was getting me and my friends were getting harassed for being Texan. One of my friend was my roommate was over there, was from Saudi Arabia, so he was Muslim, right? And I had another friend who had been in Albuquerque, but he was originally from Georgia, and I mean, he didn't give a fuck. He just didn't give a fuck. But we were basically just getting harassed the whole time by people who there was this gay kid who like just hanging out in the room, and nobody was giving him any shit, but he's just hanging out talking about sucking dick and stuff like that. And I'm just kind of like, okay, just keeping my shit to myself. But he goes off and gets everybody else kind of riled up against me, my friend, and my other friend. And we got together, me and my friends, and we're like, let's just get out of here, right? And the people were like, okay, yeah, get out of here. Everything's going to be so much better when you leave. It's like, we're going to upgrade. So we upgraded. We got nicer rooms, honestly, for the next semester. Oh, thanks for the follow, Tiger Woods Broken Legs. That's a good name. We upgraded, and like a month later, the girls from the dorm that were like part of the group that was riled up against us come up, and it's like, hey, could you guys move back? Like, we realized that like, this other kid was the problem. And I'm just like, no, I like where I'm at now. And that was before Trump was in office. That was way before Trump was in office, right? That was like 2011, 2012. So, like, I don't know what's happening in those locations, but people been crazy. People just been crazy. But, it is what it is. You got to just do what you got to do. So this is another bill that's going to effectively, provide money to give to telehealth companies so that, the congressman's investments can go up. Let's see what's next on the list. All right. So HR 551. Now this one, I'm not too sure about this one. Apparently there was an act already kind of in place that was similar to this, but now it's just kind of been expanded. And what it is, it's $10 billion to pay energy bills of low-income households, right? And so effectively, they're saying because of COVID-19, because people can't work, because we won't let them work, we want to, Energy Debt Relief for American Families Act. There's nothing in the bill. It specifically states nothing in this bill is to get rid of the debt, right? Like if you have debt, it's gonna stay there. You're still gonna owe that debt. Let's see. Let's go ahead and find that. Right. But let me go and, to amend the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Act of 1981. Right. So the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Act of 1981 was apparently a thing from 1981. Right. And so it's providing a supplemental kind of bill in order to include COVID-19 relief and for other purposes. Right. Right. There is authorized to be appropriated for payments under this title in addition to amounts appropriated for distribution to all the states in accordance with Section 2604 or to carry out Section 2607A, $10 billion for allocation to states under Section 2607C. Right? $10 billion. And the Secretary may allocate amounts appropriated under this section to provide supplementary funds to states to assist eligible households in accordance with this. Okay, so let's see. Use of funds. A state may use funds allocated to the state under this section to help eligible households in the state maintain home energy or electricity service. In other words, you can't really cut their service. By providing such households in accordance with the plan submitted by the state, 100% of the amount of any utility bill incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic that is in arrears. The fuck is that word? Anyway, this is to pay 100% of the utility bills for low-income housing. If you were against government, what you call it? Like socialism is one word for it, but welfare. If you were kind of against welfare, politics. Yes, set the boss. Politics. Really, really politics. It's just, something I enjoy doing every now and again because I feel like it's kind of important just to, pay attention to what is going on. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not so funny. All right. Now, so if you were all for the welfare state, you got to imagine the people who are going to be getting this assistance are, probably going to be voting for the people that are going to be giving them this assistance. And, this act was introduced by a Democrat from New Hampshire, Ann Kuster, how do you say her name? But yeah, that's that. It's $10 billion to provide to states to pay 100% of any utility bill incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic. All right. So there's got to be. A state may use not more than 15% of funds allocated to the state under the section for administrative expenses. Right? So you can't use more than 15% for administrative costs, but you can basically bet that 15% of this money is not going to be spent on paying these bills, but 15% of it is going to be, used for administrative expenses. Paying somebody else to do this, just paying the bureaucracy to be the bureaucracy, right? And oh my gosh, so the term eligible household means a household with a utility bill incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic that certifies to the state, including through proof of job loss of a member of the household, such as a layoff or furlough notice or verification of application for unemployment benefits, that it cannot pay such utility bill because of the economic distress caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Once again, it's not really the pandemic that's caused this. It's the response, the lockdowns, the telling people you can't go to work, the social pressure of you need to close your store, right? But, as we've seen, Walmart, Target, big guys, lots of big companies have managed to stay open through this. Right? All the small guys who, can't really fight the huge social pressure, or can't really fight the government on legal matters, close down. And so, you're not looking at it's not caused by the pandemic. It's caused by the response to the pandemic, right? And the response to the pandemic seems to be, in my opinion, lacking in substance. It's just not a really good thing. Once again, it's all about, like, you can't let the cure be worse than the disease, right? Like, they kind of do that with a lot of things. Everybody takes risk analysis and just has to run risks and stuff like that, and we do it every day, whether we are conscious of it, or not. Some people are afraid to go outside. I knew a guy in Albuquerque who rode his bike around with a gas mask on because he because it was just some kind of environmental dude. Because every time a car drove by him, he'd be like holding his mask, and just like, it's just like, ugh. It's just like, dude, like, the fuck's your problem? I'm from Houston. I roll down my window and I get a bunch of exhaust in my face. I'm like, yeah, because I like driving. I love driving. I'd rather drive than fly. Sure, it takes a lot more time, a bit more dangerous, because a lot more can happen on the road. A lot more can happen at rest stops, because there are some people out there that are, pretty fucked up. Things can happen on the road, but I feel like my chances of surviving on the road are a little higher than if something went wrong in a plane, right? If something went wrong on the road, my chances of surviving are a bit higher than if something went wrong in a plane, right? Like, sure, the chances of something going wrong are higher on the road, and the chances of something going wrong in the plane are lower. But at the same time, if something does go wrong in the plane, my chance of survival is going to be a lot smaller, right? My chance of survival in the car is going to be a little better. I have a little more control of the vehicle, right? I have no control over the plane. I can't see where we're going. I know where I'm going in the car, so it's just like, all right. Not to mention, I can take a piss. I can smoke the whole time. I can just chill. I can listen to music. I can not listen to music. I can see cows. I can, I get a lot better view of the land when I'm driving. It's very nice. But there are speed traps. They will get you for that. But that's basically just all there is to take away from this, is that they've now just kind of made it to where, like, okay, we're going to pay the utility bills for people. And so if this gets passed and you've lost your job because of the lockdowns and stuff, and you're about it, apply, they'll pay your bill. They will just pay your bill. But, of remaining funds. I love this. As if there's going to be any remaining funds, The Secretary may not allocate or otherwise use any funds appropriate under this section that have not been allocated under the by the date described in paragraph 1. Unused funds. The state to which funds have been allocated under this section shall use any such funds which have not been used under subsection C by this date described in the manner as amounts allowed to the state under section 2604. So, if they don't end up spending the money on utility bills, looks like there's a section that allows them to spend it on something else. Ain't that nice? That's that bill. What is this? Next one. $1,500,000,000 to force utilities to not cut water. Okay. That's what I've got in my notes. This is HR 616. 616. HR 616. Emergency Water is a Human Right Act. I mean, like, the rights, like, if okay, I just want to touch on this, and I heard it pretty well. If you're not entitled to someone else's labor, right? You're just not entitled to someone else's labor, right? When they were saying, like, housing is a human right, so you want to make it you want to make people entitled to someone else's labor. Someone else is to build that home for you, right? Well, okay, Why don't you build your own house? Well, if you don't have enough money for the land, you don't have enough money for the materials, you know, don't really have a spot on this planet to where you could build your own house. That's fair, but that doesn't, mean that like somebody else's labor is your right. You're not entitled to someone else's work, right? That just kind of infringes on their rights there. To prohibit water shutoffs during the COVID-19 emergency period and provide drinking and wastewater assistance to households and for other purposes. That's what it is. Now, okay, this one, I may have been wrong about the last bill saying that like nothing's going to pay off like any debt, because I mean apparently it was paying 100% of the utility bills in that one. I think it's this one that's actually like nothing of this is meaning that, right, nothing in this act shall be construed to require forgiveness of outstanding debt owed to an entity or to absolve an individual of any obligation to an entity for service. Right. So what this bill does is it's like, okay, now they're not allowed to cut your water off, but at the same time, the amount you owe them is still going to go up. Right. Now, why is there $1,500,000,000 to carry this out? Like, how much does it cost to tell a municipality, all right, you're not allowed to cut water to anybody, right? Like, okay, and it's not like they're paying the bill in this one. In this one, it's literally tells you this is not going to forgive any outstanding debt. All right, it's not going to absolve an individual of the obligation to that entity for service. So you're still going to be paying. You still owe them money. You're going to still receive water. The water bill is just going to add up, right? And somehow this costs $1,500,000,000. Somehow, I don't know how. Factors: the Secretary shall allot amounts appropriated pursuant to this section to state or Indian tribe, taking into account the percentage of households in the state that are low income as determined by the Secretary, the average state or tribal drinking water and wastewater service rates, and the extent to which the state or Indian tribe has been impacted by the public health emergency. Okay, so what it seems to be is the money is going to go towards the utility services, right? Now, they're going to pay these services so that they can still run and operate, right? But at the same time, those services are still going to be charging the people that they service for the water. So the utilities in this case, it seems like they're going to be making double what they usually would, right? I guess it's to keep them open and running and to pay their employees so that, they don't run out of money, right? If your people running your service all starve to death, then that service is probably going to stop. So you got to keep them alive in order to keep the service running, right? And so that's going to cost $1,500,000,000 to keep the services running while these people rack up their water bills and not have their service cut. Excuse me. And how long do you think this public health emergency is going to go on? Like, I mean, water where I'm at isn't all that expensive. But like in California, it's supposedly like super, super expensive. And my mouse just does its own thing sometimes. So I'm guessing this isn't going to go towards Texas. Well, let's face it, Texas isn't locked down anyway. The mask thing is still a deal. At least I don't know if it's not a deal anymore. Which is ridiculous. Because I feel like there would be like an announcement like, oh, this is going to end at this point in time. But like the way it's been going is they just kind of renew it every month. They just renew it all the time, just constantly renewing it, and it's just like, I've been using the same mask this whole time. It's fucking broken. The top strap's busted. I wrote with Sharpie on it, like I put graffiti on my own mask, and so that's just that. But I mean, that's basically the main thing of this bill. That's the main takeaway, is that like there's going to be a bunch of other stuff in here that's honestly kind of inconsequential in my opinion. I mean, this might be an interesting statement to some, but ensure that at a minimum, all households within 150% of the federal poverty line are included as low-income households. And so, you're making 150%, below 150% of the federal poverty line, then you're a low-income household. And you know what? I would like to know, what is that? Federal poverty line. Yeah, I understand it's an economic measure. Can I get a number? Okay, definitions, charts. For example, poverty level for household of 4 in 2021 is an annual income of $26,500. So, okay, here's the IRS, Federal Poverty Line, Internal Revenue Services. Oof. Bring it over here. 2019 poverty lines for 48 contiguous states and the District of Columbia. 2019 poverty lines for Alaska. Isn't that interesting? For Hawaii. We gotta like separate that. So basically, if you're making persons in family household, all right, so my family household is like 6, so you're making $47,734. That's 138% of the poverty line. You're eligible. Fucking that doesn't seem like poverty to me. So of the poverty line for one individual is 12,490. That seems like poverty. I certainly didn't make that much last year, but I'm living with my family, so I've helped out my father with his stuff. He used to, when I came back from college, he bitched all the time about bills and property taxes and stuff like that. And then I taught him what I know about trading in the market, and I haven't heard him bitch about it since. Of course, I haven't really talked to him much since, but haven't heard him bitch about it. Usually I could, sit here and listen to him bitch about it. Lately he's just been bitching about Democrats and the election and all this other shit. And it's just like, yeah, let's just see what the fuck happens with this administration, because oh my gosh, I'm more concerned about China and Taiwan right now, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, okay, so well, this is not too shabby. That's the poverty lines. I mean, like for one person household, yeah. 2-person household for like a year, yeah. 3, yeah. I'd say that's close, but that's still a lot. That's a lot. For me, that's a lot. For me, that's a lot of money, right? So fuck me, like 4, 25,750. Like that's I was making like, what was it? I was going for like 150 a month. I was doing swag luck surveys, but now that shit's gone downhill. Not as many people doing it. And that was all right. That kept me, in tobacco and stuff. I started making my own pizzas. I've been basically just living off pizzas, but it's super cheap. But it's also like, what's funny about it is my pizza is like higher quality than I'd get from like a really expensive place like just down the road that like is like known for the like margarita pizzas. It's called Carrabba's, and expensive, costly for a pizza. But like my mom goes and gets some of those pizzas, you know, being used to us liking those pizzas. And I'm just like, this pizza is shit compared to what I make. This pizza is shit compared to what I make. So thank you, but I've got my own pizza, and my pizza's a lot cheaper to make. So why is the poverty line for Alaska higher than the poverty line for the rest of the states? Why is the poverty line for Alaska higher than it is for Hawaii? I feel like this just doesn't make any sense. For households with more than 8,000 persons, add 5,080. For at 5,530, 4,420. That just doesn't make sense to me. Because, this is like including New York. Right? This includes California. Right? It's like, what the fuck? Like, damn. I'm sorry, but that is so strange for me. That is just strange. I'm glad I looked that up. But effectively, that's what this is about. Right? That's what this is about. 1,500,000,000 to keep water running for people who consider low income. So if you're inclined, if you're so inclined and you're eligible, who am I to say don't do it? Just remember that the lockdowns were imposed mostly by Democrats in most of the areas. So next time you vote, keep that in mind. Let me see. What's the next one? So the 10 billion, 1 billion. Oh, right. Another 2008. HR 618. 618. All right. HR 618. Promoting Access to Credit for Home Buyers Act of 2021. All right. Now, what's interesting about this one, what really brought 2008 to my mind, was the fact that they have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac here. Now, I'm going to leave that kind of like this. I need to take a quick pee. Be right back. Why don't you guys read that? Murph. All right. So now this one doesn't appropriate any money from Congress, right? But it does, require things. It makes requirements here. During the period that begins 5 days after the date of the enactment of this act, and in 60 days after the covered period, with respect to the mortgage, notwithstanding any other provision of law, an enterprise may not refuse to purchase any single-family mortgage originated on or after February 1st, 2020, that otherwise would have been eligible for purchase by such enterprise solely due to the fact that the borrower has, for the borrower's previous mortgage or on the mortgage being purchased. Solely due to the fact that the borrower has, for the borrower's previous mortgage being purchased, entered into forbearance as a result of financial hardship due directly or indirectly. Okay. So it doesn't necessarily matter. It's they're bringing in the lockdowns. They're mentioning kind of the lockdowns because they say indirectly that's like their lockdowns and stuff. Or really it could be anything, right? Indirectly, like somebody else closed down because of that, and so therefore that's affecting me and my business, and so therefore COVID-19 emergency. Requested forbearance or inquired as to options related to forbearance. Okay, so this is phrased in such a way that like the banks can't refuse to purchase something on the basis that somebody entered into forbearance or requested it or inquired into it. But the way somebody kind of put things to me, this was Robert Barnes from one of his live streams. He didn't do it directly to me, but did to the audience, and I'm part of the audience. The way he talked about 2008 was like, in the way I understood it at the time. I understood it as Democrats kind of forced these banks to give these loans out. But the way he puts it is like those big banks are not being forced to do a damn thing. If anything, those big banks, put that forward and made them do it so that they could then give out these loans. And then when the people couldn't pay back the loans, they bought up the properties. And so they, basically bought up a lot of property for real cheap. And at the same time, we're owed money back from the loans and stuff. And so it's just kind of a way of them to get rich. And that's kind of what this reminds me of, right? Prohibition and restrictions. Respect to purchase of single-family mortgages described in subsection A is specified in any of the paragraphs in the enterprise. May not establish additional restrictions that are not applicable to similarly situated mortgages in which the borrower is not in forbearance. Charge a higher guarantee fee or loan level pricing adjustment, or otherwise alter pricing for such mortgages relative to similarly situated mortgages under which the borrower is not in forbearance. Now, I don't understand a lot of this. Just going to be straight up. I don't understand a lot of the words because, talk about forbearance. I think forbearance is just like you're not able to pay a loan, and so you get forbearance on that loan. Right? And all this is saying is like these guys can't not buy something because it's in forbearance, which they would anyway. Like they would. I don't understand what the deal is here. But the fact that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are those federal? Are those federal like organizations, or are those just huge banks? Because if I remember correctly, in 2008, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac needed to be bailed out. Right? Because of what they did. Right? And so a lot of people who didn't see anything, a lot of people who were destroyed by the 2008 financial BS that went on, couldn't come back while these guys got bailed out by the federal government. And so this just seems to be a situation where they may be setting up kind of the same kind of deal to cause another one of these things, right? And they're just saying like may not implement additional premiums or otherwise alter pricing for such a mortgage just because of forbearance or requested forbearance or inquired as to forbearance. This just seems to me like they're just kind of setting up a situation to where it's like, yeah, we were going to buy these things anyway, right? But this thing hasn't passed yet. I'm not sure if it will. I don't see why it wouldn't. The language they use is it's enough to confuse the shit out of me. Because I'm just not familiar enough with bills directing, banks to not buy mortgages. I don't, I know what a mortgage is. Mortgagee indemnification, don't know what the fuck that is. Solely due to the fact that the borrower has entered in forbearance, requested forbearance, or inquired into forbearance. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, why do this bill at all? Right? Like, what prompted this bill is my question, I suppose. Because if what prompted the bill is people were like, we're not going to purchase this mortgage unless because they entered into forbearance, because they requested forbearance, because they inquired into forbearance. We're gonna if we purchase this mortgage, then we're gonna want to put additional premiums or change the price because they entered into forbearance or requested forbearance or inquired into it. Like, just because somebody inquired into something, I guess it's gonna affect credit, right? But this is all about purchasing mortgages. It's not about taking out mortgages. So when they're like talking about how this is to promote access to mortgage credit by preventing restrictions on providing federal backing for single-family mortgage loans in forbearance. So does that mean that the federal government is now going to be buying mortgage loans in forbearance? I mean, that just creates a situation where the federal government, I suppose, is going to own more property, own more homes, right? And then who knows what they're going to do with it. It was the same question of the Federal Reserve when they bought up all those homes for cheap. And it was just like, well, you guys kind of need to get rid of that shit, don't you? And it's just like, well, kind of want the housing market to come back before we get rid of it, kind of want the prices to come back up before we sell them. And it just seems to be kind of the same situation where it's like you crash the market, you buy it for cheap in mass, and then when the market comes back up, you sell it off, and then you crash the market again, buy it for cheap, comes back up, sell it off. Like, I mean, that's just kind of a fucked way of just fucking over the American people, just fucking over people who own property here. Because one home in the area goes down and kind of hurts the property value of other homes in the area. And so, people who have been able to pay back, people who are able to pay back their loans and stuff, all of a sudden find their house is worth a lot less, and their investment has taken a huge tank, and there's other guys coming in and are buying up the really low ones for cheap, and then when if the market comes back, then they sell it up at a big price, big upswing. So I'm just this whole bill, just as soon as I saw it, as soon as I saw Freddie Mac, as soon as they started talking about mortgages and saying like, oh, you can't refuse to purchase any of these things. Like, who's going to refuse to purchase something for cheap? Because that's what it seems like to me. Like, what the hell is this? It just reminds me of 2008. I didn't read the bill that kind of caused 2008, but I was working in 2008. It was like the first year I got a job. It was the first year as a lifeguard. And holy shit. I mean, I couldn't invest in stocks. So I just spent the money on all sorts of stupid shit. This report shall also include an analysis of all loan level data required by the subsection disaggregated by race, national origin, gender, disability status, whether or not the borrower seeking or obtaining assistance speaks English as a second language, preferred language of the borrower, debt to income level of the borrower, loan to value ratio of the loan, and credit score of the borrower. That's just a report. But yeah, this thing, it just, I don't know enough. But it just, I just got a bad feeling about it. That's just it. I just don't know enough, but I got a bad feeling about it. Right. Okay. Here's something that's just interesting. It's something of a lighter note. I found it interesting. It doesn't seem to affect me or a whole lot of people too much. It seems to only affect like maybe a small subsection of people. But at the same time, I just found it interesting, right? Shellfish Aquaculture Improvement Act of 2021. Now, what do you think? What do you think this bill is? Take a wild guess, right? Well, you want to kind of improve the shellfish aquaculture. That's what it says right there. Okay. Let's go to the text to find out. This is by Representative Don Young, Republican out of Arkansas. This guy's actually put forward quite a few things that I found just interesting in a curiously funny somewhat of a way. To amend Title 46 United States Code to exclude certain aquaculture workers from treatment as seamen for the purpose of liability in the event of injury or death and for other purposes. How does that improve shellfish aquaculture? How does that do that? My main question here is, again, like what prompted this? Right? I guess people who were getting injured or killed while working in aquaculture, insurance-wise, were able to collect. Their families were able to collect on insurance, or they were able to collect on kind of disability kind of stuff as seamen. Which I guess, they shouldn't necessarily be considered seamen, right? They, it's not like they're working on the ocean. Far from it. If anything, they're working on the beach, right? That's as close to the ocean as they get, I would think. Because this is aquaculture, right? It's those pens where it's like they're not wild like shellfish and stuff like that. Shellfish farming is what it seems to be. That's all this really does. It's just the term seaman does not include an individual who is an aquaculture worker if states workers' compensation is available to such an individual and was at the time of injury engaged in aquaculture in a place where such an individual had lawful access. So I just like, aquaculture worker defined. Right? The term aquaculture worker means an individual who is employed by a commercial enterprise that is involved in the controlled cultivation and harvest of aquatic plants and animals, including the cleaning, processing, or canning of fish and fish products, the cultivation and harvesting of shellfish, the controlled growing and harvesting of other aquatic species, does not hold a license under Section 7101C of this title, is not required to hold a merchant mariner credential under Part F of Subtitle 2 of this title. And so I guess it's just like, okay, I'm not sure how this improves shellfish aquaculture. If it's basically just like you're not allowed to seek, I guess, federal workers' compensation if you can get states' compensation, and you're not going to be considered a seaman. I just found this curious, to say the least. I found it kind of funny to say the most, honestly. But this guy, he comes back at us with another bill that I found pretty funny. And this is the same dude, same Republican out of Arkansas. HR 630, right? Polar Bear Conservation and Fairness Act. Now, what do you think this bill is? What do you think this bill does? It says Polar Bear Conservation and Fairness Act. Okay, seems like we're about conserving the polar bear population and we're about being fair to the polar bears. All right, well, how do we do that? Let's take a look at the text and find out. Okay. To amend the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972, that's a good start, to allow importation of polar bear trophies taken in sport hunts in Canada before the date the polar bear was determined to be a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act of 1973 and for other purposes. Okay, all right. See, like at first, it's like, okay, we're amending a Marine Mammal Protection Act, all right, but we're going to allow the importation. Now, I'm not against allowing the importation of polar bear trophies, right? Especially if you took that trophy in Canada before they were declared an endangered species, right? It should be legal, right? And so what this does is this says that the Secretary of the Interior shall expeditiously, after the expiration of the applicable 30-day period, issue a permit for the importation of polar bear parts, other than an internal organ, from a polar bear taken in a sport hunt in Canada to any person who can prove that they legally harvested that polar bear trophy before February 18th, 1997, or who has submitted in support of a permit application submitted before May 18, 2008, proof that the polar bear was legally harvested by the person before May 15, 2008, from a polar bear population from which a sport hunted trophy could be imported before that date in accordance with Section 1830 of Title 50 Code of Federal Regulations. So this is just about making sure that we can get our polar bear skins out of Canada, or our polar bear claws, not internal organs. I'm not sure why anybody would want. I'm not sure how anybody would preserve an internal organ of a polar bear. Since 2008 or 1997, you probably wouldn't want it after that long, anyway. But if you've got yourself if this bill passes and you got yourself a polar bear skin that's been sitting in storage up in Canada for all this time, you can finally get a permit to bring it over into the United States and throw it on the ground in your house before your fireplace and roll yourself up in it. And that's, called the Polar Bear Conservation and Fairness Act. I'm like, all right, yeah, okay. I just found that funny. I just thought that was a nice kind of interesting bill to kind of jot down a note on, kind of lighten things up, particularly after I came across the other bills. There's a lot of abortion bills. I'm not really going over abortion bills because the abortion bills are kind of about like, you might, these are important and stuff like that. It's like, yeah. But I was really kind of focused on money, the amount of money being appropriated from Congress when I was going through and looking at stuff. And whenever I came across like an abortion thing, I was like, okay, yeah, some of this stuff, it just, for me, makes sense. For other people, it may not make sense. It's, one of those subjects that like we can get into. We can do a whole thing about it, but I was just too exhausted from other things. Just mentally like, okay. Now, what's the next one? HR 571, $140 million a year to deal with gender-based violence. Now, this one is interesting, but at the same time, it's because in this bill they acknowledge that creating like a system or creating a organization that deals with victims of gender-based violence, such as like sexual assault, and especially like mass sexual assault, because they're really kind of talking about. They mention Africa a lot in this bill. However, it doesn't seem to be construed to just help Africa or send money to Africa, but it's called the Safe from the Start Act of 2021, right? But this does seem to be concerning itself mostly with non-U.S. citizens, displaced refugee and stateless women and girls in humanitarian emergencies, conflict settings, and natural disasters face extreme violence and threats, including rape, sexual assault, trafficking, forced marriage, exploitation, forced labor, genital mutilation, harassment, exploitation, abuse by humanitarian personnel. Going through this, this is just the findings, right? The findings are, what somebody says is true. And, a lot of these things you really can't argue with, right? Men and boys play a critical role in preventing gender-based violence and engaging them in prevention. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of it. A lot of it is guys need to, fight other guys in order to keep them from doing shit like that. Right? This is just the reality. But these are the findings. The statement of the policy doesn't necessarily do much, right? But the safe from the start authorization is kind of where things kind of actually get into like law, right? And what it is it's like medical services is providing like counseling. It also seems to be about promoting women's leadership and participation in humanitarian response activities, including the design, implementation, and evaluation of humanitarian responses. Which, all right, I mean, I guess if their focus is on dealing with other women, then you would think, that's probably the best thing. But at the same time, we did see, what was it, Jeffrey Epstein's girl kind of helped him get victims. And so, like, there is something in here, right? Safeguarding against sexual exploitation or abuse by humanitarian personnel by prioritizing activities that ensure that federal employees and contractors delivering United States humanitarian assistance are equipped to address sexual exploitation and abuse in settings. But like, you know, but hold on, delivery including by strengthening guidelines, training, reporting mechanisms, and remedies that both recognize and address the risks within the humanitarian aid context that can create vulnerabilities for sexual exploitation and abuse. So they are acknowledging that within some of these organizations, there's going to be people that are going to be taking advantage of the situation. And I mean, I want to say more power to them. They got medical care, like hygiene and dignity kits, health services. I mean, like, there's this touches on a lot of stuff. Touches on a lot of bad stuff, but stuff that laws should touch on. I mean, like 140 million, like, for each fiscal year to carry out this act, right? That's 140 million a year. So that's not like 140 million for a period of 4 years or anything like that. That's each year. This is going to go that way. I'll, more power to them. Like, God willing, Godspeed, that kind of a thing. Yeah. All I can really hope is that the people involved in this are good people. People that aren't going to take advantage of the situation and further exploit or further traffic vulnerable populations. I think there's going to be cases, but that's not quite true. I think things are gonna. The world's not a perfect place. It's not all sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies. And there are people who will seek these things out, these organizations out, to become part of them in order to do that kind of stuff. And I just gotta hope that they do a good job of making sure that shit doesn't happen. But once again, any government kind of bureaucratic system there is just, it's not effective, and there's just ways of exploiting it. And so, I mean, like, well, on one hand, I'm like, more power to you. On the other hand, it's just like, be careful. You got to be careful, right? If anything, I would like to see in here something where it's like training women and girls in the use of firearms, knives, martial arts, because I feel like that would empower women to be able to fight off this kind of stuff when the men aren't there to fight it off, or help with men are trying to fight it off with them. I mean, it's, you just got to do it. And I would train them in firearm use. That would be kind of my main thing here. It's like, all right, you're a victim of this stuff. Here's an AK-47. Learn how to shoot it. Like, we're gonna teach you how. We're gonna train you how. We're gonna give you the ability to defend yourself and your fellow population like this. And that's why I'm for, like, weapons. I'm all about gun rights and stuff like that. I've been thinking about going and looking and buying a gun myself, because I only have a pistol right now. I would like a rifle, but I've been trying to decide what kind of rifle to get, because I like bolt action rifles, but at the same time I need to think about, like, effective use, like how much ammo can I carry, how fast can I fire it, that kind of a thing. So I might be looking for something that can hold a bit more rounds, a bit more semi-automatic, not quite bolt action. Although I do like bolt action. I do like them. I just like I love that shit. But yeah, let's go on to the next bill. This bill is just about that, and it's more power to them. But like I said, it would be nice to see something in there about it's all about like counseling and stuff like that, and just making sure that they like can get someplace safe, and then make sure they're involved in politics, which honestly is going to expose them to that violence even more so. Particularly like in Africa, it's like like you're kind of putting them right back on the front lines there after they've been through something like that. Um, that's my feeling there, and it's interesting that this comes out of New York because New York has really strict gun laws, and so I don't think that in this bill it's not going to include anything about training women in the use of firearms, which I think in Africa would end up bringing more peace, because it's just proven, and from a data perspective, that the areas that have like more weapons, whether they be sharp sticks, knives, bows and arrows, homemade spears, guns, pistols, rifles, all this stuff, uh, they have less murders because everybody's armed, right? Like there's a higher chance of you getting hurt while you're trying to hurt somebody else. Like, you got to think about it from even like an animal's kind of perspective, somewhat, right? Like, um, most like predatory birds, right, aren't going to try to take on something that can hurt it, right? Because they're running this cost benefit analysis in their mind where it's like, okay, I can try to get this thing and I may be able to get it successfully, but if it has claws and teeth and it reaches back and hits me, I may still kill it, but how much is that going to hurt me and my ability to even like eat this thing and then get away? And so it's a cost thing. And so I would like to see something in this bill, where they actually train women that have been exploited. They're from these crisis areas. They're from these areas where they're being trafficked and all this stuff, where they're trained to use firearms or trained in martial arts. I would like some of this money to go towards that. That'd be very nice. But moving on to the next one here. Right. HR 564. Paid family and medical leave for federal employees. That's what this is. Now, this does not provide an amount. It doesn't say how much this is going to cost. Because, I mean, the reality of it is they don't know how much it's going to cost. But this is probably one of the more expensive bills being put forward. And we've gone through bills where it's, 15 billion is the highest one, right? And that's for the aviation industry bailout. But this one is paid family and medical leave. Now, they already had like paid parental leave, right? But they've just striked parental and made it family. This is put forward by Democrats, New York, Carolyn Maloney. But this is going to cost a lot. This is going to cost a lot of money. But to provide paid family medical leave to federal employees and for other purposes, right? So what this mainly does is it just kind of takes an older act. Where's it called? Yeah, I mean, it's basically Chapter 63 of Title 5 United States Code is amended. It just amends these things by saying, like, okay, you have completed 12 months of service as a federal employee of the United States government, including the United States Postal Service, Postal Regulatory Commission, and a non-appropriated fund instrumentality. I'm not sure what the heck that means, but I'm guessing that's one of those agencies that that's part of the unelected branch of government, but they make these rules up, and the people are expected to follow these rules, but these guys can't even define their own rules. But I'm guessing they're going to be covered in this. Uncovered active duty as a member of National Guard or Reserves that interrupt service described in the clause. This really just amends things here by inserting, in order to care for such son or daughter, but it also makes it to where, right, shall commence at the time of birth or placement of a son or daughter. So I guess if you adopt, I'm guessing that's what the placement kind of thing is, where if you like adopt a son or daughter, then you can then get paid family medical leave. So I mean, I wonder how many adoptions are going to go up in order to just get the paid leave, in order to get a vacation, just adopt somebody. And if you're in the government bureaucracy, then chances are you're going to be approved, sooner rather than later. In my opinion, that's what I think might happen. But that's what this says. It's just doesn't say how much it's going to cost, because it's going to be it's going to cost a lot, because one of the biggest costs of running a business is paying your employees. And they already had parental leave, but they just changed it from parental by striking parental in each instance, right? By striking birth or placement involved, and inserting event giving rise to such leave. By striking an employee and inserting with respect to leave described in subparagraph A, employee. I'm guessing that's like family, but okay, so excuse me. The complication of this is they're just taking an older bill and they're just amending it by striking things and adding things. And I'm not familiar enough with the old one, but in subsection heading, by striking parental leave and inserting family and medical leave. So they're basically saying that like the family kind of gets the leave, so they're paying for the family leave, which is just like, I don't know what that necessarily means. For me, I guess it means that if you need to spend time with your family because you just adopted a child, so you need to spend time with that child, then you get your family medical leave. Medical leave, I guess, it was the thing that they already had. Maybe it was just parental leave that they already had, or like if you became a parent, then you got leave, and it was paid leave. Event giving rise to such leave, but now it seems to be medical leave. So I guess there's going to be any kind of medical services, which I used to, if I didn't want to go to school, I just said I didn't feel well, and so I got to sleep in, and I was not really getting favored too much in that regards. It's just, you don't want your child going to school and throwing up all over the place and having to come right back, which, didn't quite happen all that much. Only happened if I, what was it? My friend gave me a hydrocodone once. And I'm like in fucking Bible class because I went to this private Christian school. And I felt so sick. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom and throw up. And it's just like, go in there, I throw up. She like sends in this guy teacher who was doing like a Bible class for like the grade below. And he's coming in. This guy was such a pushover, right? But he would be like, oh my gosh, like anything I do? Like, yeah. Like, go to the office, like tell them I'm going home, bring me my backpack. It's just like, it's like, all right, yeah. So like get my shit, and I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. Like I'm going home. And it's like, oh wow, okay, yeah, just okay. He says he's going home. He's going home. And so it's like, all right, yeah, I can't really argue with that. Didn't get in trouble. It was pretty nice, not gonna lie. But yeah, it's just they're making it to where it's no longer just parental leave, but they're making it family and medical, which I guess the family is in order to cover adoptions, and the medical is to cover the giving birth, right? By striking birth and or placement involved and inserting event giving rise to such leave. So whatever event, I guess. They're making it pretty broad for people to just grab themselves some family and medical leave. How much are you going to bet as soon as this bill passes that like a quarter of the federal workforce goes on leave? I'll bet a fat amount of them go on leave, and I bet they'll do it pretty fucking often. That's what I'd do. Like, heck, if I was part of bureaucracy and I was getting paid off the taxpayer dime, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. All right, now what's this next one? Okay. HR 578. Oh boy, this is 25 million for 2022 through 2026, and this is all about apprenticeships because I guess the government has finally figured out that not everybody can go to college. Right? At least college isn't for everybody, and not everybody needs to go to college in order to learn something that makes them a ton of money. You know, and then you got a bunch of people going to college who are learning a bunch of nonsense, like stuff that's not useful in any industry. And the only way you're gonna get a job is if somebody like creates a position for you and forces people to take like a class like yours, which is one of the biggest things I hated about college. Right? If you're fucking paying to go to college, like I was paying to go to a university so I could get a nuclear engineering degree. Right? Now, that nuclear engineering degree, for some reason, I was required to, in order to get my nuclear engineering degree, I was required to take classes that had nothing to do with nuclear engineering. Like learning Spanish, like a foreign language, right? Like, why the fuck do I need to learn Spanish, right? Let me focus on the nuclear engineering degree. If I need to learn Spanish, I'll learn Spanish like outside of the classroom. Like, you guys, I will learn it faster going and moving to Mexico than sitting here and listening to this bitch talk about her trip to Spain. Like, although my Spanish teacher did have like just a giant ass, like she had really thin waist, but she was just massive ass. It's like, bitch, you're like, what the fuck? How many squats do you do a day? Like, holy shit. But yeah. So what this is to promote registered apprenticeships, including registered apprenticeships with in-demand industry sectors through the support of workforce intermediaries and for other purposes. I don't know why they gotta say registered apprenticeships. Like, what about non-registered apprenticeships? Like, I'm not sure what the heck the difference is. Congress finds something. Definitions. Once again, we don't really care about findings. We don't really care about definitions, right? Because it's just like anything can be put down in the findings, whether or not it's true. And definitions are just kind of like it's nice if you're going back and looking at the law because you're like involved in something and you're looking to see if you can find like a little loophole in there. But we're really concerned about we're for workforce intermediate grant program and applications, right? And so what this is from amounts made available to the secretary will establish and carry out a workforce intermediaries grant program by awarding grants on a competitive basis to workforce intermediaries to enable the workforce intermediaries to engage a variety of stakeholders, such as local boards, secondary schools, institutions of higher education, and employers, to support, develop, and implement registered apprenticeship programs. Right? So, trying to get programs where people can apprentice under somebody who knows what they're doing and learn with it. I don't have necessarily a huge problem with this, I guess, but you can bet that the government grants are going to favor, people that are close to the government, in my opinion. Right? Geographic diversity. So just geographic diversity in the areas in which the activity will be carried out under the grants. Well, that's the only thing they got kind of going there. A grant awarded under this act shall be an amount of not more than $6 million. Such amount shall be determined based on the relative number of apprentices a workforce intermediary plans to facilitate. So that's not really necessarily how like apprenticeships work. Apprenticeship is like you learn from a master of something, right? And it's kind of like a master to apprentice kind of thing, and maybe one master have 2 or 3 apprentices, but you don't really do it on like a large scale, in my opinion. You don't have like a class that kind of does that. They've got like schools where people teach welding and stuff like that, but those people aren't really apprentices. And the matching funds shall be an amount. Workforce intermediary receiving grant under this act shall provide matching funds. from non-federal sources for the activity supported under the grant. So you got to match up to $6 million. The matching fund shall be an amount that is not less than 20% of the amount of grant funds provided. Okay, no, so it's just 20%. You have to match 20% of the money that is granted to you from someplace else. So you need money in order to get money, effectively. And applications is, target populations that are unrepresented. Apprenticeships generally, in fields in which apprentices will be trained. It's just apprenticeships are really something that not many people think of, and really a lot of people don't have access to. Really have access to go to a job and get training just on the job site, right? So it'd be like sales guy, you're there, you're not really apprenticing, right? They're more like giving you a script, running you through the script, and then sending you out there on your own. Sometimes, like I did something where some guy was training me, but like he wasn't really training me. He was more like pulling me along through something that I didn't want to be part of. It was just like, okay, yeah, dude, I can't do this. Like, I can't have a job where people like try to avoid me. That does not make me feel like I'm being used. I'm useful or adding to society. And just use the funds. The funds can be used for all these things. And the appropriations, authorization of appropriations. It's authorized to be appropriated to carry out this act, $25 million for each of fiscal years 2022 through 2026. All right, so that's 4 years. So that comes out to be $1 billion. No, 100 million. My bad. I'm stupid. 100 million. If it was 250 million, then it would be $1 billion. But it's just 100 million total over the course of 4 years. Which, not necessarily against it, but at the same time, I feel private sector can kind of handle itself. But I suppose when the government's already involved in everything, private sector can't do as much as it'd like to. But at the same time, it's kind of been encouraging people to go another route, like into college, and so people have been getting federal student loans, and so it's like huge debt problem. Let's see. Now the next one is HR 603, and this Raise the Wage Act of 2021. Now, I don't know how you feel about minimum wage over there, but here I'm not the biggest fan of it because I feel like it keeps certain industries from even being able to exist in the United States. Like a recycling industry, like it's just you don't make much money recycling like scrap electronics or scrap like stuff. So it just can't exist really because you just don't make enough to do anything, and you certainly can't like hire anybody to do the work to help you do the work because you'll be losing money the entire time. And I also feel like this is coming at a really bad time. Like they talk about all the small businesses that have been hurt. The only people that are going to be able to afford these wage increases are large companies. Like the only ones that are going to be able to afford these wage increases are large companies. And so small businesses, it seems, are going to take a pretty hard hit. But they're going to be, I guess you could say, gentle about it, in that they're not going to raise it to $15 all at once. Right? They're going to raise it like $9.50 an hour, beginning on the effective date under this act, right? And then a year after the effective date, which is when this is passed, it'll be $11 an hour. And then another year later, it'll go up to $2.50 an hour. Another year later, it'll go up to $14 an hour. Another year later, it'll go to $15 an hour. So, that's going to cause, first off, companies, employers to have to recalculate every year how many employees they might be able to keep on, which, might end up in them firing more employees than needed, because they're just trying to guess how much they can keep, how many employees they can actually hold on to. What that's going to end up doing is putting more work on the people that are already working there. And, we're talking not big jobs, because most jobs are paying more than $15 an hour. The jobs that aren't paying $15 an hour are like, jobs for like waiters, waitresses, service industry, kind of stuff like that, like particularly in the food industry. I don't know of many other jobs or like in the lifeguard industry, right? Like, and if you're like a high school kid, like lifeguarding, right, you're happy for the work, and you're happy to just sit on your ass and soak up sun, drink lemonade the whole time, with sunglasses on, looking cool, and watching what's going on in the pool. But it's, if you have enough people on, then it doesn't suck that much, right? If you can rotate every 30 minutes, then it's good. But if you can't really rotate every 30 minutes, instead you have to rotate like every hour, then it's going to suck even more, right? You're going to have a lot more sun. You're going to have a lot more exposure to sun, which, it's going to raise your chances of being burned underneath the sun. And so I just don't like this. I just don't like this. But that's what this is. And, look at all the people hopped on it. This is, going to be one of the ones that I kind of expect people to fight against. Like, this is going to be one of the ones I expect to get filibustered. Right? These are the people, like, people may say, like, oh, but you got to kind of raise the minimum wage in order to kind of keep up with inflation, stuff like that. Yeah. Or we could not, destroy inflation, because the idea that you have to have like a little bit of inflation, I'm not necessarily buying it, right? Because why can't we, have deflation? Why can't we, why can't the bills, individual dollar buy more instead of less? Like, why not? And I mean, the reason for that is because the people printing the money, the people, I guess, just printing it, which seems to be the Federal Reserve kind of a system that we got going here, right? Because it's just the history of currency in this country shows that, like, we used to have like different currencies in different regions and stuff like that. And now it's like, okay, let's get the federal government to grant us the ability to create one currency. And so it's a conglomeration of big banks that got together and got this thing passed. And so it's a situation where it's like, yeah, we want to keep printing money because it's our income. Whereas like the American people really don't need the inflation, right? So how about we, turn that around? And we can't really turn it around because, we got too many people who are, I guess, not well versed. And it's tough. I wouldn't be versed in this if it weren't for certain things. Having time to kind of go through it and stuff like that. But, that's what this does. It talks about tipped employees and how, if you're tipped, you're allowed to keep it. And, of course, that's been the case, right? Like, an employer shall inform each employee of the right and exception provided under the preceding sentence, right? So you're allowed to keep your tip, right? Is it effectively, an employer has the right to retain any tips received by such employee, right? That's not going to, that's, I guess there are employers out there that would be like, oh, you got tipped this much, then I don't have to pay you that much. And it's just like, well, that's bullshit. It was bullshit, right? And there are people out there that would do such things, This is weird. There's a lot in here that makes me think there's a lot more loopholes around this. Right? Newly hired employees who are less than 20 years old. Base minimum wage for newly hired employees who are less than 20 years old. Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 is amended by striking a wage which is not less than $4.25 an hour and inserting a wage at a rate that is not less than $6 an hour for each succeeding 1 year period until hourly wage into this paragraph increased by the lesser of $1.75 or the amount necessary for the wage in effect of this period equal to the wage in effect for such period rounded to the nearest multiple of 5 cents. So people under 20 years old, is it literally going to be $6 an hour? I don't know. To be honest, this language really confuses me, and I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know what stuff was like before, but it seems like that's what it's saying. All right, a wage at a rate that is not less than, for the one period beginning on the effective date, $6 an hour. For each succeeding 1 year period until the hourly wage equals the wage in effect for such a period, an hourly wage equal to the amount determined in this paragraph, increased by the lesser of 175 or this. The amount necessary for the wage to be in effect. So I'm guessing like they're just going to do it by increments. Like, okay, it's going to start at 6, but then next year it's going to go up to $7.75. And the next year it's going to go up another $1.75 until you get to $15 an hour, it seems. Which, if I was thinking from just an employer perspective, I don't think it'd be very easy to estimate how much you're going to have to pay out in wages. Because that's the most costly part of doing business for a lot of companies, especially the service industry, particularly the food service industry. Your main, cost is paying your employees. And so this is just, I'm going to have to see what happens with this. But I don't know. I'm not too thrilled about it. That's me personally. I figure I can do a little better than this just because I've learned kind of how to trade the market somewhat. Now I make mistakes here and there, but trade the market and work on other things. Let's see. Jobs I have looked at, like mostly sales jobs, and those all suck. Those all really suck. I'd much rather sit here and work on this stuff or trade in the market. What's the next one? That's the minimum wage raise bill. Oh gosh, 50 million, 2022 through 2026. Restore San Francisco Bay. So, guess who wants $50 million to restore San Francisco Bay? And not just restore San Francisco Bay, but to create an office within the Environmental Protection Agency that provides plans on how to restore the San Francisco Bay. Now, I don't know anything about the San Francisco Bay. I don't know what's going on over there. But you would think that's something that the state would want to handle, particularly a state that taxes the living hell out of its citizens. You'd think they got the money for it, but no, they won't want to get the money from that. They got that money's all used for other things, feeding their bureaucracy. And so, the term San Francisco Bay Plan, right? So, blah, 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 where's the appropriations? Oh. All right, authorization of appropriations. To be appropriated to carry out this section, $50 million for each fiscal year, 2022 through 2026, $50 million a year. Not less than 25% of the cost of any project, activity, or study carrying out using amounts provided in this provided for from non-federal sources. So you're gonna get the money not less than 25%. Not less than 25% of the cost of any project or study carried out using amounts provided under this section shall be provided from non-federal sources. Not less. I'm sorry, it's just so no less than 25% of the cost should be provided in this section provided from non-federal sources. I'm going to just repeat this over and over again until it clicks in my head. Non-federal share. All right, so they saying that they're going to get the money from elsewhere other than the federal government, then why is it that they? Does that mean that like the 50 million they're asking for is only 75% of the money they are going to want for this? Amounts provided to any entity under this section for fiscal year shall not exceed an amount equal to 75% of the total cost of any project activities and studies that are to be carried out using those amounts. That's what it seems to be. It seems to be that they expect to get 75% from the federal government, and that 75% is equal to the 50 million. The 25% is going to come from someplace else. Right? Oh, man. But in general, let's see. Not later than 5 years after the date of the enactment of the section, the director, in conjunction with the estuary partnership, shall review and revise the comprehensive conservation and management plan approved under Section 320 for the San Francisco Bay Estuary to develop a plan to guide the project's activities and studies of the Office to address restoration and protection of the San Francisco Bay. See, with this isn't even like we need this money so that we can then restore the bay in this way. This is, we want this money so that we can study and come up with a guide to projects and activities, to develop a plan to guide the activities and studies and the projects that will do it. So this isn't even going to actually do it. They just want to guide how it's done. I wonder what that means. I guess that just means that they're not actually going to restore the San Francisco Bay. They're just going to let it remain a problem so that they can continue to use it as a way to get money. That's what it seems to me. That's what it seems to me. If I'm wrong, let me know. If I'm not, let me know. And of course, Miss Pelosi's in here. I was just like, okay. All right, what's next? Okay, HR 591. HR 591 is interesting as it's put forward by a Republican, one of the few Republican bills they put forward yesterday. And it's called the Defund Eco Health Alliance Act. Now, what's interesting about this is it talks about like it's going to deny funding to the Eco Health Alliance Incorporated, the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Right? Now, just no funds authorized or appropriated by federal law may be made available for any purpose to Eco Health Alliance Inc. Study and report. Not later than 2 years after the date of the enactment of this act, the Comptroller General of the United States shall conduct a study and submit to Congress a report on the amount of federal funds awarded to Eco Health Alliance Inc. during the 10-year period preceding such date of enactment were provided. So within the last 10 years, they want to get a report of how much money was given to them, whether purposely or inadvertently, to the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party, or the Wuhan Institute of Virology, or any agency or instrumentality thereof. Ottacow for Carol Conca. Well, I'm not sure necessarily Eco Health Alliance Inc. I looked them up. I Googled them. And you certainly don't get too much information except to say that scientific research and pandemic prevention, right? Location, New York City, New York, right? It doesn't tell me much here, but it talks about hidden almost 40 million in Pentagon funding and militarized pandemic science. Now, this website obviously doesn't seem to be all that legit to me, right? But it seems like somebody put the work in here. But they're saying, seem to think that $61 million has gone to these guys. And I'm not sure about this source, this site here, but EcoHealth Alliance seems to have some interesting connections, because if this bill is alleging that the Eco Health Alliance Inc. is connected to the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology, then it's curious to wonder what's going on, right? And yeah, I don't expect to get much from Yahoo necessarily, or Google. Really, you can bet the first few pages are going to be nothing but well, not good stuff necessarily, because that was that one link. Fact checked USA Today. Well, I don't trust USA Today to be unbiased, but I have seen reports that there's going to be funding sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which recently it seems the World Health Organization investigations, like, it's not ruled out that this thing came from there. But also I've seen reports that the Chinese Communist Party has withheld data, manipulated data, and all that stuff in regards to what went on there. So we may never know, but this individual seems to think that it's important that they not receive funding. And so, do I think this bill is going to get passed? Probably not, mainly just because it's a Republican that put it forward, Republican out of Pennsylvania. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Let's see, what's next on my list? Right, HR 569. 569. This is put forward by a Democrat to deny oil or gas development in the Mid-Atlantic. Right, it's the Defend Our Coast Act. And the Defend Our Coast Act is what it means is defend it from oil and gas exploration. Right, so withdrawal from disposition of Mid-Atlantic outer continental shelf. The Secretary may not issue a lease for the exploration, development, or production of oil or gas on the outer continental shelf in the Mid-Atlantic planning area. Well, all right. I mean, if this passes, which, with Democrats in control, chances are it will pass. I'm not going to see any development there, which, it would, not too bad. It would cause the price of oil to go up, which would, benefit my family directly. Because, we've worked on oil and gas leases, just the legal areas of it. In my city, Houston. So, sure. Although I am kind of, I'm not too happy about the closing of the shutting down of the Keystone Pipeline project, mainly because it seemed like that was a huge infrastructure project that would have allowed the development of more rural areas, and would have, I guess, taken people out of cities and allowed them to move to the countrysides where they would actually be able to get energy and stuff. It would have just made more availability for more land available for suburb development. That's all it really would have done. Because places kind of start out as like farm areas. Because I remember when I was a kid, I lived out in Katy, and behind the house, with our neighborhood that was developed, our suburb, was like a farm. There was a farm out there, and there was forests, and there were cows, and there were deer, and I could wake up in the morning and I could look out the window from the second story, and it'd be foggy out there, but I could see deer playing with calves, young deer and calves just kind of running and jumping around together. And there was always just this. I don't know if we called it a myth, or if you would call it a myth, but there was just a bull, right, that we believed would hang out in like the trees. And if you like went out there too far, the bull would come charging out of the trees and would kill you. But I mean, it never actually happened. But very possible that there was a bull hanging out there. But that farm got bought up by a church, which then cut down the forest and moved the cows and the deer out and built West Campus Second Baptist, which wasn't too bad. Sometimes went to church there, and we did puppet shows there for the kids. And I wrote those scripts, and that was like when I was in fucking like kindergarten. We did literally like I wrote scripts for these puppet shows that we did for these toddlers, and it was a very successful show. But my dad was making me do all the work and taking all the credit, so I was like, "Fuck you!" All right, see where your show goes without me. That's where it went. I knew it would, but it was not about him sitting there and flirting with moms. Big smile on his face, making me carry the sets and the puppets and shit. It was just like making me write all the scripts and stuff. Like, one of those things. Right, what's next? We only have a couple more on the list here. HR 576. These are all from yesterday too. Like today, there's a whole new list of bills. It's just like, are you shitting me? And this isn't even all the ones from yesterday. This is just all the ones that I found to be of interest. Next Generation Votes Act. Oh, right. This is to force states to accept voter registration for ages 18 and under, but over 16. Like, if you remember when you were 18, you're like, yeah, I don't want to vote. But like, you got to register to vote. It's like, okay. And I don't know what the rationale is here, right? Well, if they're old enough to drive, then they're old enough to vote. Well, I mean, why don't we go one step further? If they're old enough to walk on the sidewalks or to ride a bicycle on the sidewalks, why aren't they old enough to vote? If they're old enough to use the public transportation ways, then why aren't they old enough to vote? Answer me that. That's where it's going to go. We want everybody to vote. We want the little kids to vote. And it's just like, well, the little kids are just going to vote with what their parents tell them. Right? Like, and, as far as I know, Democrats aren't really the ones who are about big families. So, like, heck, like, this may be something that if they pass, would bite them in the ass, but at the same time, I don't think it should pass. I think less people should be allowed to vote. I think 18 is actually too young, too. Like, wait till people are fucking 21, so if they're old enough to drink, they're old enough to vote. All right? You're basically getting people whose brains aren't fully developed to vote. And it's just like, why? Like, why would you want that? Like, why would you want that? It's like, well, because everybody should be allowed to vote. Well, then, let's get the kindergartners registered. See who they vote for. You know what I mean? Like, how easily are they going to be swayed by their fucking teachers? Like, it's just like, are you fucking serious? Let's just see where this goes. But this is one of those things that I don't think it should pass. To amend the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 to require states to accept applications to register to vote in elections for federal office and in the state from individuals under 18 years of age at the time of application. Right? Now, it's funny, in this one, it says under 18 years of age, which at first I was like, wait, just under 18? Like, anybody under 18? But then down here, so long as the individual is at least 16 years of age at such time. So I don't know what the fuck that means. I guess it just means that they have to accept the application, right? But, like, does that mean they have to approve the application? Because accept, like, a state may not refuse to accept or process an individual's application to register to vote. So I guess just processing it means that they have to, they get to vote. I suppose. I mean, what if it goes through the process and they're like, your application was accepted and processed but has been denied? Like, is that how it's gonna go? Because it doesn't say it has to approve the application, right? Because you're applying for something. Typically, applications are approved, right, or denied. And so I figure, is this just going to be one of those situations where it's just, the language is just being kind of manipulated in order to make people think that they've put forward a bill that actually allows people who are 16 or 17 to vote, when in reality it just makes, the state just can't not accept the application, or they just can't not process it, but at the end of the day they can still deny or approve it. Like, gosh, I don't know. That's that one. And the last one establishes the Office of New Americans under the executive branch. This is HR 572. National Office of New Americans Act. These guys. No, yeah. I mean, this was put forward by Democrats. Grace Meng, same person who put forward a few of these other things, including the one about gender-based violence. To establish the National Office of New Americans within the Executive Office of the President and for other purposes. Right. So, establishment. There is established within the Executive Office of the President an office to be known as the National Office of New Americans. Purposes. The purposes of this office are the following: to welcome and support immigrants and refugees in the United States, to promote and support immigrant and refugee integration into and inclusion in the social, cultural, economic, and civic life of the United States, to ensure that the federal government and federal agencies promote the pursuit of United States citizenship among immigrants and refugees. Like, yeah, I mean, they fucking should be trying to become citizens. I don't know what the hell. But anyway, to ensure the access of quality English language learning programs for people by enhancing employment and career prospects. Well, it's funny, they want to raise the minimum wage, and they want to, which is going to take out employment prospects. But then they want to sit there and be like, oh, we want to give these guys employment prospects. Like, okay, probably employment within the government. Anyway, this, I don't necessarily have like a issue with this. Like, it just creates more bureaucracy, which I do have an issue with. But at the same time, like, if they pass this and they make this a thing, then they've basically set it up to where, like, the government bureaucracy is going to be in charge of, oh my gosh, whatchamacallit? Not educating, indoctrinating, right? And the, so the president is going to, where is it? The president is going to decide who to appoint, and then the Senate is going to, The office shall be headed by a director who shall be appointed by the president, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. Right? So it's going to just, brand new office stuff, right? So this guy, right now, say it's Joe Biden, right? And Joe Biden appoints somebody, and the Senate approves that somebody. And that somebody sets about, like, bringing in, immigrants and refugees and, teaching them to vote Democrat, right? Well, let's just say that Trump wins in 2024. Then you got Trump, who would be in charge of this office. And what the fuck do you think he's going to do, right? He's going to be like, all right, y'all come in. Don't listen to those guys. Those guys are lunatics. And they're going to be like, oh, okay. Like, shit, I don't know what's going on here. And it's just, one side's going to indoctrinate a group, and the other side's going to indoctrinate a group. And it's just going to be like, welcome to America. You become a patriot, become an American. Other side's going to be like, welcome to America. This place hates immigrants and refugees, and you're just going to have to live with it. Like, it's like, fucking hey. It's just a bunch of shit. right? Like, it's just a bunch of shit. Oh my gosh, there was another bill from yesterday, and I actually didn't write it down. I was just too tired. But it was about denying driver's licenses to illegal immigrants, which, I mean, kind of makes sense. The whole thing about like ID in this country is so weird because I have friends that don't have an ID. They never got a driver's license, right? They just Uber around everywhere. I mean, they just have the money to not need a driver's license, right? But at the same time, they can't vote, right? Because they don't have an ID. Because they need an ID to vote here in this state. And but at the same time, they always got an opinion about like who people should vote for, and it's just like, do you vote? And it's like, no. Well, then why the fuck should I listen to you? Why the fuck should I listen and take your opinion seriously if you don't even vote, right? Like, it's just like, well, I would vote if they didn't require voter ID. Yeah, well, if we didn't require voter ID, we'd have everybody voting, and we'd have probably multiple people voting multiple times, and that's just gonna create. It's just gonna suck. It's just gonna be like, fuck this. No wonder people in California have no faith, and then no wonder Republicans there are like, there's no point in me voting. There's no point in voting in this state. It's just like, oh, okay, it makes sense. When you got people who just see there's no point in voting, then your system's going down. It's gonna crash. Thanks California for fucking that. And what is it? There's other states too that do the same thing. We'll see what happens after this last election. I'm sure I'm hoping at least that there's gonna be Democrats that are like, yo, we can't do this shit. Because there are good Democrats, and they're not all like insanity laden monsters or anything like that. And it's the same with Republicans. There's good side, bad side, good people on both sides, bad people on both sides. It's funny because Democrats talk about how like evil Republicans are, right? How they're just raised to know that Republicans are evil and they're all about war and murder, and they fucking eat your children or some shit. But like over here, from where I'm at, it's more like Democrats are idiots. Like for the most part, they're fucking stupid. Like some things do seem to be just straight up like evil, right? Like, okay, we're gonna release criminals into your society, and Biden's executive order, like, yeah, you gotta release felons out, and it's just like, yo, bro, like, you're trying to tell us we can't like deport criminals from our state that don't belong here, and it's kind of like you gotta just have to release them into the community, and it's like, look, you can do that in California, but fucking no. And it's a good thing the Democrats kind of screwed themselves over the last 4 years. They were always about power to the federal government, and then fuck states' rights. And then Trump gets into office. States' rights! States' rights! It's just like, you fucking idiots. And that's how Texas was able to sue Biden on his order, trying to tell us we can't deport people. It's like, go fuck yourselves, because you set a precedent. All right, well, that's how somebody's full of shit. If they literally are just willing to throw their beliefs under the bus in order to go after political opponents, then they're not about like a set of values. They're just about political power. That's just kind of how if somebody's consistent in their beliefs and stuff, which apparently people have said that Bernie Sanders is consistent. I don't know. He may be consistent, but like, at least in my opinion, he's consistently wrong and stupid. Inconsistently like manipulates data and information. I mean, like, the one big talking point is we're the only country in the world that doesn't have universal health care. Yeah, well, we're also the only country in the world that wasn't absolutely destroyed by World War II. So, there wasn't really that kind of emergency over here. And, these days, people in Canada are like, oh, protect the healthcare system. Don't let people know that it's really ineffective and it sucks. And in Britain, UK, oh, protect the NHS. Don't let people know this shit is super vulnerable. It's bureaucratically ran. It's full of shit. It's like, well, people are happy with the Canadian system. Oh, I'm happy with the NHS. Yeah, you're happy with it now, but if something really put it to the test, it would not survive such a thing. And people are like, oh, the hospitals in Texas are overran, and then we get like statements from the hospitals like, no, we're not overran. Like we're just not. That's BS. But yeah, all right. That's the end of the stream rant there. Oh, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yikes! 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 I'm probably gonna be gaming on League here in a bit. So if you want to stick around for that, well, don't stick around. You can go ahead and go off someplace else. I'm gonna go grab some dinner, make some pizza or something. Oh man. All right. Thanks for following, and I'll see you cats next time.